Good evening and welcome. Tonight, we delve into a question that sparks considerable debate in modern society. Should humans refrain from eating animals? It's a topic touching on ethics, our environment, health, and deeply ingrained traditions. The relevance of this discussion is growing every day. Joining us are two experts with distinct perspectives. Dr. Eleanor Vance, an environmental scientist, argues for a shift away from animal consumption. And Mr. David Chen, a nutritionist and representative for farming communities, presents the case against a complete cessation of eating meat. We'll begin with opening statements, followed by moderated discussion rounds, address a key question on practicality, and conclude with closing remarks. Let's maintain a respectful and insightful conversation. Dr. Vance, please begin with your opening statement.
Thank you, Ms. Rossi. My position is clear. For ethical, environmental, and health reasons, humanity should make a concerted effort to move beyond the consumption of animals. Firstly, the ethical dimension is impossible to ignore. Animals are sentient beings, capable of experiencing pain, fear, and distress. The conditions prevalent in industrial farming, intense confinement, denial of natural behaviors, and ultimately slaughter, raise profound moral questions. Can we justify inflicting such suffering for the sake of palate, preference, or convenience? Secondly, the environmental toll of animal agriculture is staggering. It's a leading driver of greenhouse gas emissions, surpassing many other sectors. Raising livestock demands vast amounts of land, contributing to deforestation and land degradation. It consumes enormous quantities of fresh water and is a major source of water pollution. Furthermore, it significantly contributes to biodiversity loss as habitats are destroyed for grazing or feed production. Our planet simply cannot sustain this level of impact. Thirdly, from a health perspective, while nutrients are available in meat, high consumption, particularly of red and processed meats, is consistently linked to increased risks of serious health issues, including heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and certain types of cancer. Conversely, well-planned plant-based diets are not only nutritionally adequate, but can offer significant health benefits, including lower rates of chronic diseases. They provide ample protein, fiber, vitamins, and minerals. Therefore, transitioning away from eating animals is not merely an option, it is becoming a necessity for a more compassionate, sustainable, and healthier future for all inhabitants of this planet.
Thank you, Dr. Vance. Mr. Chen, we now invite you to present your opening statement.
Thank you, Ms. Rossi and Dr. Vance. While I acknowledge the concerns raised and agree that reducing excessive meat consumption is advisable for many, I argue that a complete, universal refrain from eating animal products is neither necessary nor universally beneficial. My first point concerns nutrition. Animal products are exceptionally nutrient-dense. They provide high-quality complete protein, easily absorbable heme iron, zinc, and crucially, vitamin B12 in its most bioavailable form. While plant-based diets can be healthy, achieving optimal levels of all essential nutrients requires careful planning, supplementation, and access to a wide variety of foods, which isn't always feasible globally. There are genuine risks of deficiencies, particularly for vulnerable populations like children, pregnant women, and the elderly, if such diets are poorly managed. Secondly, we must consider the deep cultural and societal roles of animal products. For millennia, meat, dairy, and eggs have been central to cuisines, traditions, celebrations, and social identities across the globe. Furthermore, animal agriculture is a vital part of the economy, supporting the livelihoods of hundreds of millions of people, particularly in rural communities worldwide. A complete shift away would have profound and disruptive socioeconomic consequences. Thirdly, the environmental narrative often overlooks the potential of sustainable and regenerative farming practices. Not all animal agriculture is factory farming. Well-managed grazing systems can improve soil health, enhance biodiversity, and even sequester carbon, effectively becoming part of the climate solution. not just the problem. Responsible animal husbandry integrates livestock into the ecosystem positively. Therefore, I advocate for balance, responsible consumption patterns, focusing on reducing waste and excess, and strongly supporting farmers who employ sustainable and ethical practices, rather than a complete prohibition.
Thank you, Mr. Chen. We have clearly defined opposing viewpoints. Let's move into our first discussion round, focusing on the conflict between ethics and necessity or culture. Dr. Vance, Mr. Chen brings up cultural significance and nutritional necessity. How do you weigh these against the ethical argument regarding animal suffering? Is tradition a sufficient justification?
Tradition and taste are culturally important. I don't deny that. However, traditions evolve, especially when they conflict with fundamental ethical principles. We no longer accept many practices that were once traditional, but are now considered morally unacceptable. The capacity of animals to suffer is a scientific fact, not a matter of sentiment. Regarding necessity, major dietetic associations worldwide confirm that well-planned vegan diets are appropriate for all stages of life. The necessity argument often stems from habit or lack of knowledge about plant-based nutrition. The concept of, quote, humane slaughter itself is problematic. Can we truly humanely take the life of a being that does not want to die, especially when alternatives exist?
Mr. Chen, your response? How do you address the ethical challenge Dr. Vance poses, particularly regarding industrial farming, and the idea that nutritional needs can be met otherwise?
Dr. Vance makes valid points about the unacceptable conditions in some industrial farms, and I agree that welfare standards must be significantly improved and enforced. However, this doesn't equate to an ethical requirement to cease all animal consumption. Humans have evolved as omnivores. Consuming animals is part of our natural history and ecological role, unlike purely recreational cruelty. Regarding nutritional completeness, while it's theoretically possible for some individuals with access to diverse foods and supplements to thrive on plant-based diets, projecting this onto the entire global population, with its vast disparities in access and education, is unrealistic. In many parts of the world, animal products are the most reliable, accessible source of vital nutrients. For them, it is a necessity, not just a preference. And cultural foodways provide comfort, identity, and social cohesion. These are not trivial matters.
But isn't the scale of modern animal agriculture fundamentally different from our evolutionary past? The sheer numbers involved change the ethical equation, don't they?
The scale absolutely presents challenges, which is why the focus must be on sustainable intensification, improved welfare, and reducing per capita consumption in wealthy nations where it's excessive, not necessarily total elimination everywhere.
Let's transition to our second discussion point: environment and health versus sustainability and economy. Dr. Vance highlighted the heavy environmental footprint. Mr. Chen, you mentioned sustainable practices. Can these practices truly mitigate the damage sufficiently to feed a growing global population, as Dr. Vance questioned the efficiency?
Sustainable practices like rotational grazing, silvopasture, integrating trees, forage, and livestock, and using manure for fertilizer instead of synthetic options can make a significant difference. They improve soil health, water retention, and biodiversity. These methods contrast sharply with industrial monoculture feed production, which is often implicitly bundled with animal agriculture and environmental critiques. Regenerative agriculture aims to work with ecosystems. Furthermore, livestock can graze on marginal lands unsuitable for crop cultivation, converting inedible cellulose into valuable protein. Dismantling this system entirely would have massive economic repercussions, displacing millions and potentially leading to social instability.
Dr. Vance, how do you respond to the potential of sustainable farming and the economic arguments?
While sustainable practices are certainly preferable to factory farming, they simply cannot match the scale of current or projected future demand for meat without significant environmental consequences. The fundamental inefficiency remains. It takes far more land, water, and energy to produce a calorie of animal protein compared to plant protein. Even well-managed grazing requires substantial land area. Regarding the economy, transition is key. We need policies that support farmers shifting towards plant-based agriculture or other sustainable land uses. It's not about sudden disruption but planned change, potentially creating new jobs in alternative protein sectors and ecological restoration. And on health, while Mr. Chen rightly points out potential pitfalls of poorly planned vegan diets, the overall health burden associated with high meat consumption in many populations is undeniable. Promoting plant-centric diets aligns better with public health goals.
But isn't there also a health risk in eliminating entire food groups that have been part of human diets for so long? We're still learning about the complexities of nutrition and the microbiome.
The evidence overwhelmingly supports the health benefits of reducing meat intake and increasing plant foods. Any potential risks of eliminating meat are manageable with basic nutritional knowledge and, where necessary, fortified foods or supplements, which are increasingly accessible.
This brings us to a crucial practical question. Considering factors like cost and accessibility, is it realistic to expect everyone, regardless of their income level or geographic location, to adopt a diet completely free from animal products? And how would farmers realistically transition?
This is a critical point. Currently, in many regions, basic plant-based staples like lentils, beans, rice, and seasonal vegetables are actually more affordable than meat. The perception of high cost often relates to processed meat alternatives, not whole plant foods. Accessibility is improving, but requires investment in infrastructure and distribution. Farmer transition needs government support, subsidies shifting from livestock feed to diverse plant crops, retraining programs, and investment in new markets for plant-based products or ecosystem services like carbon farming. It's a challenge, but not insurmountable with political will.
Mr. Chen, your perspective on practicality and the farmer transition?
While some staples are cheap, obtaining the variety needed for a nutritionally complete vegan diet can be expensive or impossible in, quote, food deserts or developing nations. Highly processed vegan alternatives are often costly. In contrast, eggs, some dairy products, or cheaper cuts of meat often provide affordable, high-quality nutrition in these contexts. We shouldn't underestimate their role. The transition for farmers is immensely complex. Entire communities and infrastructures are built around livestock. Expecting millions globally to simply switch professions ignores the deep, practical, financial, and emotional investments involved. Support sounds good, but the scale of transformation required is unprecedented and potentially destabilizing.
Thank you both. We now move to closing statements. Each of you has 2 minutes. Dr. Vance, please proceed.
Throughout this discussion, we've examined the profound impacts of our dietary choices. I maintain that the arguments for refraining from eating animals are compelling and urgent. Ethically, acknowledging animal sentience demands we minimize inflicted suffering, especially when nutritious alternatives are available. The industrial scale of modern animal agriculture makes this an imperative, not a luxury. Environmentally, the evidence is clear. Shifting towards plant-based food systems is one of the most effective actions we can take to combat climate change, conserve water, protect biodiversity, and preserve land resources for future generations. From a health standpoint, reducing or eliminating animal products generally leads to better long-term health outcomes and reduces strain on healthcare systems. The challenges of transition, accessibility, and cost are real, but they are solvable through innovation, policy changes, and collective will. Choosing plant-based is choosing a kinder, greener, healthier world. I urge everyone to consider their individual role in this necessary shift.
Thank you, Dr. Vance. Mr. Chen, your closing statement.
Thank you. This debate highlights the complexity of our relationship with food. While acknowledging the need for change in our food systems, I believe a universal mandate to refrain from all animal products is an overly simplistic solution to a multifaceted issue. Nutritionally, Animal products provide essential, easily accessible nutrients that are harder to obtain reliably from plants alone, especially for vulnerable populations globally. We must be cautious about advocating diets that could inadvertently harm health. Culturally and economically, animal agriculture is deeply interwoven with human societies. It provides livelihoods for millions and forms part of our heritage. Responsible reform, not wholesale elimination, respects these dimensions. Environmentally, the focus should be on combating unsustainable industrial practices and championing regenerative agriculture, where livestock can play a positive role in ecosystem health. Sustainability and animal farming are not mutually exclusive. Therefore, I advocate for responsible omnivorism, reducing excessive consumption, eliminating food waste, demanding higher welfare standards, and supporting farmers who practice sustainable methods. Let us seek balance and informed choices, not prohibitive extremes.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, and thank you, Dr. Vance, for a stimulating and respectful debate. Tonight, we've heard compelling arguments navigating the tensions between the ethics of animal welfare and cultural traditions, the environmental impact of agriculture versus its economic necessity, and varying perspectives on optimal human health and nutrition. There are no easy answers, and the purpose of this discussion was not to declare a winner, but to illuminate the different facets of this important issue. We hope this conversation encourages our viewers to reflect further on their own choices and the broader implications of our global food systems. Thank you for joining us. Good